Welcome to Supreme Earth Moments. Recently, China experienced a devastating natural disaster as a major dam burst, leading to catastrophic damage. Thousands of people were displaced, hundreds of homes were swept away, and the loss of life is immeasurable. Join us as we take a closer look at the most striking images and events from this tragic incident. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on significant global events. In this video, we'll explore the impact of the dam collapse, including the heroic rescue efforts and the ongoing challenges faced by the affected communities. Stay tuned as we dive into the heart of this disaster, showcasing the resilience and determination of those who survived. Severe flooding and storm impacts in China. In recent weeks, China has faced unprecedented weather-related disasters that have wreaked havoc across several provinces. Heavy rainfall has led to severe flooding in Henan, Shanxi, and Sichuan, causing widespread infrastructure damage and leaving thousands of people displaced. In Henan, the relentless downpours have pushed river levels to alarming heights, submerging cities and villages. The flooding has been catastrophic, with numerous people reported missing. The provincial capital, Zhengzhou, has been particularly hard hit, with floodwaters rising to dangerous levels in some areas, leading to significant infrastructure failures and hampering rescue operations. Shanxi has also suffered greatly from the floods. Major populated areas have been inundated, complicating rescue and relief efforts. The heavy rains cause rivers to overflow, flooding streets and residential neighborhoods. Emergency teams are working tirelessly to evacuate residents and provide temporary shelter to those displaced. Sichuan's situation is equally dire. The province has been hit hard by both heavy rainfall and subsequent landslides. The combination of flooding and landslides has led to building collapses and extensive damage to roads and bridges. Access to affected areas is severely limited, and the military has been mobilized to assist with rescue operations and infrastructure rebuilding. As if the flooding wasn't enough, China is now bracing for the impact of Typhoon Preparun. The typhoon, which has formed in the Pacific Ocean, is moving towards the east coast of China and is expected to intensify the already challenging situation. Meteorologists warn that Preparun could be one of the most powerful typhoons in recent years, potentially causing additional destruction and exacerbating the flooding. Authorities have issued evacuation warnings to residents in coastal areas and are taking proactive measures to strengthen dams and other critical structures to mitigate the impact of the impending typhoon. The focus is on enhancing preparedness to protect lives and minimize damage. International support has been forthcoming, with several countries and organizations offering assistance. Rescue teams and humanitarian aid have begun arriving from neighboring countries, and Chinese authorities are coordinating these efforts to ensure an effective response to the crisis. The collaborative efforts underscore the global solidarity in times of disaster. In Beijing, the capital, the situation has reached a critical point. The city has been experiencing some of the worst flooding in its history due to extreme rainfall. Streets have transformed into torrents of water, leading to widespread damage to infrastructure and forcing the evacuation of thousands. The severity of the flooding has overwhelmed the city's drainage systems, which were not designed to handle such a volume of water. The impact on Beijing has been severe. Many homes and businesses have been inundated, with abandoned cars being washed away by the floodwaters. The disruption to daily life has been profound, with public transportation, schools, and businesses all affected. The economic losses are substantial, with significant damage to agriculture and infrastructure, and recovery efforts are underway. Environmental experts attribute the increasing frequency of such extreme weather events to global climate change. The city's drainage systems were simply not equipped to handle the unprecedented rainfall, highlighting the urgent need for urban planning that accounts for changing climate patterns. Authorities are now developing plans to improve drainage and create additional reservoirs to better manage future rainfall. In the meantime, the floods have had serious repercussions for Beijing's environment. Pollution from the floods has affected water resources, and efforts are underway to restore ecological balance and improve water quality. The city's long-term strategy includes upgrading infrastructure to withstand extreme weather and cooperating with international organizations to implement advanced flood control technologies. Local residents are facing numerous challenges, including disruptions to electricity and water supplies. Many areas are without power, affecting hospitals, schools, and other critical services. The water supply has also been compromised, forcing residents to rely on alternative sources for drinking and household needs. Recovery efforts in Beijing and other affected areas are ongoing, with emergency services working around the clock to pump water out of flooded areas, evacuate residents, and provide essential supplies. The scale of the disaster is such that recovery could take weeks or even months, with significant financial costs and logistical challenges ahead. The response to the flooding has included mobilizing the army, setting up temporary shelters, and coordinating international aid. Despite the difficulties, there is a concerted effort to restore normalcy and rebuild damaged infrastructure. The situation remains fluid, with ongoing efforts to clear debris and address the immediate needs of those affected. As China continues to grapple with these natural disasters, the focus is on both immediate relief and long-term resilience. The challenges faced by Beijing and other provinces serve as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of even the most developed regions to the forces of nature. In the face of climate change and extreme weather events, there is a pressing need for improved infrastructure, better emergency preparedness, and global cooperation to manage and mitigate the impacts of natural disasters. In summary, the severe flooding and storm impacts across China have created a crisis of significant magnitude. The affected provinces, including Beijing, are working diligently to address the immediate needs of their residents while planning for long-term recovery and adaptation. The international community's support and collaborative efforts are vital in helping China navigate this challenging period and build resilience against future disasters. Here are some viewer comments we collected on the internet. 1. However, the disasters do not end there. China is preparing for the arrival of Typhoon Prapiran, which has already formed in the Pacific Ocean and is moving towards the east coast of the country. Two, the Chinese are being punished by heaven for blocking the rivers that flow to Southeast Asian countries with dams. 3. 3. China likes water so much that they built dams on the upper reaches of the Mekong River and caused countries on the Indochina Peninsula to suffer from water shortages, but they are getting as much of the water they like as they want. Haha. Drink a lot until you explode. Four. In this unfortunate situation, when I think about the situation where, instead of receiving help and comfort from each country, they are ridiculed and criticized, I hope that the Chinese will reflect and introspect on how many bullying actions they have committed against their neighboring countries so far, and that this will be an opportunity for change. 5. This is probably the punishment for continuing development that ignores nature and is driven by the pursuit of money. Why not go back to basics and live a life with your feet on the ground? Introduction: the increasing vulnerability of China to natural disasters. Over the past few decades, China has witnessed significant economic growth and infrastructural development. However, alongside this progress, the nation has faced increasingly severe natural disasters, most notably catastrophic floods. The recent series of floods, exacerbated by dam failures and unprecedented rainfall, have underscored the vulnerabilities in China's infrastructure and disaster preparedness systems. These events have not only resulted in immediate devastation, but have also sparked discussions on the long-term implications for the nation's development and its ability to cope with future climate-related challenges. The role of major dams in China's flood management strategy. China's strategy for managing its extensive river systems has historically relied on the construction of large dams, such as the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River, which is the world's largest hydropower project. These dams were designed to serve multiple purposes: controlling floods, generating hydroelectric power, and providing water for irrigation and urban use. However, the very infrastructure meant to protect against floods has, in some instances, exacerbated the problem. The Three Gorges Dam, engineering marvel or ticking time bomb. The Three Gorges Dam, often hailed as an engineering marvel, has been at the center of controversy since its inception. Proponents argue that the dam has played a crucial role in flood control and power generation, while critics point out the environmental and social costs, including the displacement of millions of people and the submergence of large tracts of fertile land. Recent events have brought these concerns into sharp focus. In a span of just a few days, the Three Gorges Dam was overwhelmed by floodwaters, leading to the inundation of 3 provinces. The dam's inability to contain the floodwaters has raised questions about its design, its operational management, and the broader strategy of using large-scale infrastructure projects to control natural forces. The impact of dam failures on local communities. Immediate consequences, loss of life and property. The failure of dams, whether due to design flaws, operational mismanagement, or extreme weather conditions, has immediate and devastating consequences for local communities. In the provinces affected by the recent floods, tens of thousands of people were forced to evacuate their homes as water levels surged beyond critical limits. Entire villages were submerged, and in some cases the water rose so quickly that residents had little time to escape. The floods destroyed homes, businesses, schools, and hospitals, leaving many without shelter, income, or access to essential services. The disruption to daily life was profound, with families separated, livelihoods lost, and a deep sense of insecurity permeating the affected regions. Long-term socioeconomic impacts beyond the immediate loss of life and property. The long-term socioeconomic impacts of these floods are likely to be severe. Agricultural land, the backbone of many rural communities, was inundated, leading to the destruction of crops and livestock. For farmers, this means not only a loss of income for the current season, but also the potential for long-term financial instability if the land remains unproductive or if future harvests are threatened. In urban areas, the floods cause widespread damage to infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and power lines. The cost of repairing this infrastructure will be substantial, diverting resources from other critical areas of development. Moreover, the floods have disrupted supply chains, leading to shortages of essential goods and services, which will have ripple effects throughout the economy. Government response, strengths and weaknesses, emergency response and evacuation efforts. In the wake of the flooding, the Chinese government mobilized significant resources to assist in the evacuation of residents and the provision of emergency relief. Military units were deployed to the hardest-hit areas to help with search and rescue operations, distribute food and water, and restore basic services. The scale of the government's response was impressive, reflecting its ability to mobilize quickly in the face of disaster. However, despite these efforts, there were significant challenges. The speed and scale of the flooding caught many off guard, leading to delays in evacuation and difficulties in reaching some of the most affected areas. The destruction of roads and bridges further complicated the delivery of aid, leaving some communities isolated for days. Financial aid and reconstruction plans. In addition to immediate relief efforts, the Chinese government has announced plans for extensive financial aid and reconstruction programs. These plans include compensation for those who have lost their homes and livelihoods, as well as funding for the rebuilding of critical infrastructure. The government has also promised to invest in new flood control measures and to improve the resilience of existing structures. While these plans are ambitious, they face significant challenges. The sheer scale of the destruction means that reconstruction will take years, and the costs will be enormous. Moreover, there is a growing recognition that simply rebuilding what was lost will not be enough. Instead, there is a need for a more comprehensive approach that addresses the underlying vulnerabilities that made these communities so susceptible to flooding in the first place. The role of climate change in intensifying natural disasters. Extreme weather events and their impact on flooding climate change is widely recognized as a contributing factor to the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, including the heavy rainfall that has led to these catastrophic floods. As global temperatures rise, the atmosphere can hold more moisture, leading to more intense and prolonged periods of rainfall. This, in turn, increases the risk of flooding, particularly in areas with inadequate infrastructure to manage large volumes of water. In China, the impact of climate change is being felt across the country, with record-breaking temperatures, prolonged droughts, and more frequent and severe typhoons. The recent floods are just one example of how climate change is exacerbating natural disasters and challenging the resilience of communities and infrastructure. The need for adaptation and mitigation strategies. The growing recognition of the role of climate change in these disasters has led to calls for more robust adaptation and mitigation strategies. In the context of flood management, this means not only improving existing infrastructure, such as dams and levees, but also investing in natural solutions, such as restoring wetlands and reforesting watersheds, which can help to absorb excess water and reduce the risk of flooding. Mitigation efforts are also crucial, particularly in reducing greenhouse gas emissions to slow the pace of climate change. China, as one of the world's largest emitters of carbon dioxide, has a critical role to play in global efforts to mitigate climate change. The recent floods serve as a stark reminder of the importance of these efforts and the need for urgent action. The psychological toll on affected populations, trauma and mental health challenges. The psychological impact of the floods on affected populations cannot be overstated. For those who have lost their homes, livelihoods, and loved ones, the trauma is profound and long-lasting. Many survivors are struggling with anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as they grapple with the enormity of the disaster and the uncertainty of the future. Mental health services are often limited in disaster-stricken areas, compounding the challenges faced by survivors. While emergency relief efforts typically focus on providing food, water, and shelter, there is a growing recognition of the need to address the psychological needs of those affected by such disasters. Community support and resilience. Despite the trauma, there have been remarkable displays of resilience and solidarity within affected communities. Neighbors have come together to help one another, sharing resources and offering support in the face of overwhelming adversity. This sense of community has been a critical factor in helping survivors to cope with the disaster and begin the process of rebuilding their lives. Local and international organizations have also played a vital role in providing psychological support through counseling services, support groups, and community-based programs designed to help survivors process their experiences and build resilience for the future. International response and cooperation, humanitarian aid and support. The international community has responded to the disaster with offers of humanitarian aid and support. Countries and organizations from around the world have sent food, medical supplies, and financial assistance to help those affected by the floods. The Red Cross and other international NGOs have been active on the ground, providing critical services to those in need. This international response has highlighted the importance of global solidarity in the face of natural disasters. However, it has also raised questions about the adequacy of current global systems for disaster response, particularly in the context of increasingly frequent and severe natural disasters driven by climate change. Lessons for global disaster preparedness. The floods in China offer important lessons for global disaster preparedness. One of the key takeaways is the need for robust, flexible, and scalable systems that can respond quickly to disasters of varying magnitudes. This includes not only the physical infrastructure needed to manage floods and other natural disasters, but also the social and institutional frameworks that support effective disaster response and recovery. There is also a need for greater international cooperation in addressing the root causes of these disasters, particularly climate change. The floods in China serve as a reminder that no country is immune to the impacts of climate change, and that global action is needed to mitigate these effects and protect vulnerable communities around the world. Moving forward, building resilience in the face of climate change. Investing in resilient infrastructure. One of the most pressing challenges facing China in the wake of the floods is the need to build more resilient infrastructure. This includes not only repairing and rebuilding what was lost, but also making strategic investments in infrastructure that can withstand the increasing risks posed by climate change. This might involve designing buildings, roads, and bridges that are more resistant to flood damage, as well as implementing advanced flood management systems that can better control water levels and protect vulnerable areas. Thinking things through, and trust is more important than anything else. 15 and hundreds of years ago, Emperor Kangxi of the Qing dynasty said, "Disasters caused by the Yellow River bursting its banks were all caused by human negligence. Simply put, they were man-made disasters. Disasters caused indirectly by human negligence." 16. China should keep water to use. It's a waste of God's gift to let it flow away. Hurricanes are meteorological phenomena characterized by the formation of a low-pressure area, often accompanied by strong winds, heavy rains, and unusual weather conditions. They can occur over sea or land and can cause significant damage to the affected areas. Types of storms: tropical cyclones. Names: in different regions, they have different names. Hurricane in the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific. Typhoon in the Northwest Pacific. Cyclone in the Indian Ocean and South Pacific. Characteristics: they form in tropical or subtropical regions with warm ocean waters and have a combination of winds, heavy rains, and high waves. They often have a vortex structure with a low-pressure area at the center. Subtropical cyclones. Characteristics: have atmospheric characteristics of both tropical storms and lower pressure systems. They usually form in areas that are not strictly tropical, but have similar elements to tropical storms. Extratropical cyclones. Characteristics: occur in areas outside the tropics, usually at high latitudes. They are often associated with the separation of warm and cold air masses and can cause rain, wind, and snowstorms. Structure of a tropical cyclone. Eye: the central area of the storm where the pressure is lowest. In the eye, the weather is usually relatively calm and may be clear. Eye wall: the swirling ring around the eye of the storm, where the winds are strongest and the rain is heaviest. Rain bands, bands of clouds that form around the eye of the storm, often extending far from the eye and carrying rain and wind. Causes of a storm: high ocean temperatures. Warm ocean water fuels the storm. When the ocean reaches a certain temperature, it creates strong convection, which contributes to the formation of a hurricane. Air convection. When hot, moist air rises from the ocean's surface, it reduces the pressure and creates a low-pressure area. This pressure difference stimulates the formation of a hurricane. Earth rotation. The Coriolis effect caused by the rotation of the Earth helps create vortices and strengthen the structure of a hurricane. Impacts of hurricanes. Strong winds. Winds can destroy infrastructure, trees, and endanger people and property. Heavy rains and floods. Heavy rains can lead to severe flooding, causing damage to communities and the environment. High waves and saltwater intrusion. High waves from hurricanes can cause saltwater intrusion and damage to coastlines. Forecasting and prevention. Forecasting. Use meteorological forecasting models, satellites, and radar to track the formation and movement of hurricanes. Warnings. Meteorological agencies provide early warnings and guidance to help communities prepare for and respond to storms. Prevention. Provide preventive measures such as building resilient infrastructure, evacuation plans, and safety measures for residents. Hurricane is one of the most powerful meteorological phenomena and can cause severe damage. Understanding the structure, causes, and impacts of storms is important to minimize damage and protect communities. The phases of a storm, from arrival to dissipation. Phase 1, the storm begins. As the storm approaches, the sky transforms from a clear, serene blue to a menacing gray, heavy with thick clouds. This gradual darkening feels like an oppressive blanket smothering the world. The first gusts of wind are barely noticeable, carrying a chilly unease. However, these subtle breezes soon escalate into fierce winds that howl and moan, making the air thick with tension. Streets empty as people take shelter, boarding up windows and securing their homes. Signs and billboards start to flap violently, and emergency services issue urgent warnings. The atmosphere is charged with a sense of anticipation and fear as everyone braces for the storm's full impact. Phase 2, the storm rages. When the storm reaches its peak, it unleashes its full fury. The wind roars with deafening intensity, as if a colossal force is battering the world. Trees bend and twist, their trunks resembling rubber and branches snapping off with loud cracks, becoming projectiles in the storm's path. Rain shifts from a light drizzle to a torrential downpour, with each raindrop hitting like a small bullet. Visibility plummets as the rain pours in relentless sheets, transforming streets into raging rivers and causing severe flooding. Debris, including metal, branches, and glass, becomes a deadly hazard as the ground turns into a treacherous quagmire. Cars become partially submerged, their engines failing as waters rise. The sense of danger is omnipresent, with debris flying and the ground unstable beneath your feet. Phase 3, the storm subsides. As the storm wanes, the winds and rain gradually decrease. The once turbulent air now feels oddly calm, with howling winds reduced to a faint whisper. Rain slows to a gentle drizzle, and the torrential downpour becomes a soft patter. However, the aftermath reveals the storm's full impact. Debris litters the landscape, with uprooted trees, damaged buildings, and streets clogged with remnants of the storm. Floodwaters recede slowly, leaving mud and silt behind. The cleanup begins as people cautiously emerge from shelters, assessing the damage and starting the daunting process of recovery. Despite the relief of the storm's end, the challenge of rebuilding and repairing is immense. The 3 most powerful storms, a brief overview. 1. Hurricane Katrina, 2005. Hurricane Katrina, one of the most devastating hurricanes in U.S. history, formed in the Atlantic Ocean in late August 2005. Intensifying rapidly, it reached Category 5 status, with winds exceeding 175 km/h. The storm made landfall on August 29, 2005, near New Orleans, Louisiana. Katrina's impact was catastrophic, exacerbated by the failure of the levees that protected New Orleans. The resulting flooding inundated large portions of the city and surrounding areas. The storm claimed over 1,800 lives, displaced thousands, and caused billions in damages. The devastation highlighted severe issues with emergency response and infrastructure. leading to a reevaluation of disaster preparedness and recovery strategies. 2. Hurricane Camille, 1969. Hurricane Camille struck the Gulf Coast in August 1969 and is remembered as one of the most powerful hurricanes in U.S. history. Reaching Category 5 intensity, Camille had winds of up to 190 power. It made landfall on August 17, 1969, near Pass Christian, Mississippi. The storm brought a catastrophic storm surge that flooded coastal regions and caused widespread destruction. Buildings were flattened and entire communities were submerged. Camille resulted in over 250 deaths and extensive damage, estimated in the billions. The storm's unprecedented ferocity set a high standard for hurricane intensity records and prompted advancements in hurricane forecasting and emergency management. 3. Typhoon Haiyan, 2013. Typhoon Haiyan, known locally as Yolanda, was one of the most powerful tropical cyclones ever recorded. It struck the Philippines in November 2013, achieving maximum sustained winds of 105 mph and categorizing as a super typhoon. Haiyan made landfall on November 8, 2013, causing unparalleled devastation. The typhoon flattened entire cities and towns, with storm surges and high winds wreaking havoc. The storm resulted in over 6,000 deaths and displaced millions, with damage estimates exceeding $14 billion. Haiyan's aftermath exposed significant weaknesses in disaster preparedness and response, leading to extensive international aid and reconstruction efforts. Hail is a fascinating and dramatic weather phenomenon that occurs when solid ice pellets form within thunderstorms and fall to the ground. This meteorological event, while not uncommon, is notable for its potential severity and impact. Understanding the intricacies of hail formation, its effects, and how to prepare for it can help mitigate the risks associated with this natural occurrence. Formation of hail forms within strong thunderstorms, particularly those with intense updrafts and significant vertical development. The process begins in the thunderstorm's cloud base, where warm, moist air rises rapidly. As this air ascends, it cools and condenses, forming water droplets. In thunderstorms with particularly strong updrafts, these droplets are carried to higher altitudes where temperatures are below freezing. Once the water droplets reach the freezing levels, they begin to solidify into ice. These initial ice pellets, known as hailstones, may be small and relatively light. However, the powerful updrafts within the storm can keep these hailstones suspended in the cloud for an extended period, allowing additional layers of ice to accumulate around them. As the hailstones encounter supercooled water droplets, liquid water that remains in a liquid state even at temperatures below freezing, they continue to grow. The size of hailstones depends on the strength of the updrafts and the amount of supercooled water available. In particularly severe thunderstorms, updrafts can be strong enough to sustain hailstones for longer periods, leading to larger hail. When the hailstones become too heavy for the updrafts to support, they fall to the ground. The size and mass of these hailstones can vary greatly, from small pellets to large spheres, comparable in size to golf balls or even softballs. Characteristics of hailstones exhibit a range of sizes and shapes. They can be as small as a pea or as large as a grapefruit. The size of hailstones is typically classified into categories, such as pea-sized, around 0.25 inches or 6 millimeters in diameter. Marble-sized, 0.5 inches or 12 millimeters. Golf ball size, 1.75 inches or 44 millimeters. Tennis ball size, 2.5 inches or 64 millimeters. Baseball sized, 2.75 inches or 70 millimeters. Softball sized, 4.5 inches or 114 millimeters. Hailstones often have a layered structure, with each layer representing a different stage of growth. The layers can vary in color and texture, which can provide information about the conditions in the storm cloud at different times. For instance, a clear, glassy layer may indicate a period of relatively stable conditions, while a more opaque, frosty layer might suggest more turbulent weather. Impacts of hail. The impacts of hail can be significant and varied, affecting both human activities and natural environments. Property damage. Hail can cause substantial damage to buildings, vehicles, and other structures. Hailstones can shatter windows, dent car bodies, and damage roofing materials. In severe cases, the damage can be extensive, leading to costly repairs and insurance claims. The financial impact of hail damage can be considerable, particularly in areas prone to frequent hailstorms. Agricultural damage. Hail poses a significant threat to agriculture. Crops such as corn, wheat, and soybeans can be severely damaged by hailstones, leading to reduced yields and economic losses for farmers. Hail can also damage fruit trees, potentially affecting their productivity for multiple seasons. Human and animal safety. Large hailstones can pose a direct threat to human safety. People caught outside during a hailstorm can suffer injuries from being struck by hailstones. Animals, particularly livestock, are also at risk, as hail can cause injuries or force them to seek shelter in unsafe conditions. Environmental impact. Hail can affect natural ecosystems by damaging vegetation and altering habitats. In severe storms, the destruction of plant life can lead to erosion and affect local wildlife populations. The recovery of these ecosystems can take time, depending on the extent of the damage.
A storm with heavy rain and rocks suddenly landed in Luzhou, Sichuan, causing serious flooding in some urban areas. Extreme weather conditions caused many roads to be flooded on a large scale, hindering normal traffic and causing significant inconvenience to people. According to meteorological data, 2 weather stations in Luzhou recorded torrential rain, while 73 stations reported heavy rain. The storm also brings extremely strong winds, wind speeds of level 9 or higher. Specifically, Luzhou Port in Longnikan District had a wind speed of 29 meters per second, and Rongshan High School in Hejiang District reported a wind speed of 25 meters per second. Heavy rainfall caused notable flooding on the Yangtze River Bridge deck in Luzhou. Faced with this situation, relevant authorities quickly coordinated with the Traffic Police Department to resolve the incident. In response to adverse weather conditions, the Emergency Management Office of Luzhou City Government promptly issued a green warning about the risk of rainstorms. Authorities were directed to closely monitor developments and changes in rainfall and water levels, and increase patrols and defenses to minimize damage from possible floods. Please join us every day to stay updated with weather information. Don't miss out, click the register button to support us.